All right, we're excited. We are all feeling jacked up on coffee today. Welcome everybody to Industrial Marketing Live.
Look at all those faces.
Yay, this is so fun. And we were here, we're doubting our early morning IML choice, but this is proving otherwise. I think people are ready to join, have some coffee and talk about marketing. Good morning, everyone.
Oh, man.
Cool. Well, we are super happy to see some familiar faces, some new faces. I'm Peyton Warren, and I'm the moderator / host of Industrial Marketing Live. You've got several gorillas on the call today. And before we jump into letting everybody give their thoughts on what we do with $1,000, we just want to do a little bit of housekeeping. As a reminder, IML is a space meant for workshopping, collaboration. We are just trying to be better than we were yesterday, be progressive marketers, learn, evolve, apply new strategies and new tactics to our lives in the industrial space. So we're excited that you're here and that you are part of it. And we really do want you to be part of it. Please do get involved in the chat. I see there's already some chats popping off. I'll definitely be contributing in there too. Happy to have you take questions there. We will talk probably for the first 20 minutes or so, and then we'll just go Q&A. So if you've got questions today about our topic, which we're going to kind of go in a little bit of a paid social direction. Hello, Kat. Then that's great. But if you have questions in another direction, totally fine too. Just jump in. So one more note. I've had a few questions about the recurring meeting. So IML meets every 2 weeks. We do Thursdays, the last Thursday and the first Tuesday. If you're not currently seeing all of those on your calendar and you need help getting those on your calendar, hit me up. It should be in your confirmation email, but you just say add to calendar and it should add the entire series. Use the same registration link to come in. So I just want to make sure that no one's having trouble with that because the best part of this is that we all gather together and I don't want anyone to struggle there. Okay, so let's talk about marketing. I'm going to hand it off here pretty quickly, but I just want to say, we're calling this conversation Paid Social 102 because we had a Paid Social 101 conversation with Matt Schinella and Blake Strazik of Refine Labs back in February. We will send out that link here if you'd like to revisit it, but we kind of want to build on top of that. And in 101, we talked about what platforms are best for industrials, overviews on objectives and campaign testing, different rules of thumb for budgeting, which was super, super helpful. And then everyone's favorite, that time horizon to results. So definitely suggest revisiting that episode. But there's more, paid social is this huge, huge beast. So that's kind of the direction we're thinking to take it in today. And with that, I want to hand it to Mary just to kind of talk a little bit more about the build here, why we're continuing to talk about paid social from an in-house perspective.
All right, what's up, guys? For those of you who don't know or who are kind of new here, Brendan and I were both in-house before we came to Gorilla 76 at industrial or manufacturing companies. So we have a pretty unique perspective for this group. When it comes to paid social, we were doing a prep call before this, and Brendan and I had very different experiences in-house. So we both pitched the idea of doing paid social over LinkedIn or Facebook. I got rejected. Brendan did not. My budget.
Just tell Isaac he can too.
My budgets were set way in advance. So when I tried to bring up that we should promote a blog post, promote an image, a video, a clip on Facebook or LinkedIn, it was, nope, we don't have the cash for that. But I want to flag this up because Brendan's going to come in with an opposing perspective that you can still find people, even though, so my director of marketing was the one who rejected it for good reason. She was right. Budgets are set in advance, no hard feelings there. But the interesting thing is depending on how your company is structured, you can still find people who are willing to give you the budget for those experiments. So our company was structured in product management teams. And those were based by market. So we had like oil and gas, food and beverage, chemical processing, et cetera, et cetera. So you can find those leaders of those product segments, market segments who are willing to make those kind of, willing to take those risks, do those kind of experiments. That's where I found my inroad, was not necessarily with the director or VP of marketing or sales, but actually in those product development teams. So Brendan, take it from there.
Yeah. So when I was at Graco, I was marketing manager and I reported directly to the VP of marketing and sales. And then I supported 2 product marketers who each had similar products that focused on different industries. So we had industrial pumps and then we had food and beverage pumps. So I ran 2 separate LinkedIn pages for both of those groups. But yeah, so I started to listen to a lot of the, some of the SaaS marketers out there, like Chris Walker's of the world. And it's like, okay, I need to get on the LinkedIn train and, figure out how to do some paid advertising, because we were doing organic. But I wanted to, I kind of started to realize like a lot of these, maintenance managers probably aren't, connecting to my company Facebook page that had like 30 followers. So I needed to find a way to guarantee distribution of my content. So yeah, I went and asked, I asked the VP of marketing and sales, hey, could I have some budget to try something? And then I tried something and it didn't go good. I didn't know how to do anything on LinkedIn. It's complicated. It's complex. And then so I ran the one experiment. It didn't go great. And so I kind of just shut it down, and I was just worried about spending money without having a clear goal in mind and a clear process on how to go and create campaigns that would actually achieve success. It's kind of the same thing. Like I've always wanted to play golf, but I don't want to start just playing golf without having had any training, because I don't want to have all these bad habits and start hooking and slicing all over the place. So the same thing with LinkedIn. I didn't want to get all these bad habits and not have a process in place for me to actually do ads and do marketing. So yeah, I had permission to do it. And then I just never really took advantage of that because I didn't have there was no really good resource out there how to make campaigns. So,
and speaking of resources, we're super excited at Gorilla because we just got like the best resource ever in Kevin McClary. So I want to introduce Kevin really quickly. Kevin's our performance marketer. He comes to us from Gorilla, North Carolina. And we're just super happy to have him. So Kevin, I don't know if you want to share just a little bit about your background, not that you're like in a job interview or anything, but your background's different than Mary and Brendan, right? So I think it's important context.
Definitely. Yeah. So I have, most of my experiences come from working with agencies. So I've never been in-house at a manufacturing company. I've always been working in agencies with a wide range of clients. So I've worked with manufacturing types of clients, but I've also worked with smaller scale clients with a shorter sales cycle, all different kinds of products, e-commerce. So I have, a perspective of seeing what works and what doesn't work with a lot of different products in a lot of different industries. And I've run at now like millions of dollars of ad spend on all different kinds of platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, whatever, you can think of. So coming into Gorilla, I feel like I have a unique perspective where I haven't just been within the manufacturing sector, and I can kind of bring in some new ideas that might help here, but also learn along the way as well.
Awesome. So Kevin, we have a question for you, and I have a question for the rest of the audience. So I would like to see your answers in the chat. But what campaigns are you allowed to run? And then Kevin, the question for you is, your boss is giving you $1,000 to start doing campaigns. What do we do now? So I'd like to see some answers to that in the chat as well. So we'll pull those up when you guys put those in there. But Kevin, I think we can kick it back to you. So what do you do with $1,000 to get started?
Yeah. So if you have $1,000 a month to get going with paid media, or to run an experiment or just sort of see what works, that's a really awesome thing. But if you don't have any real experience in it and it's your first real crack at it, you don't really just want to throw paint at the wall, kind of like Brendan was saying, and sort of see what happens. You want to have some more focused options on how you can get in front of people who have already shown an interest in your business. So without any kind of proven audience like that or previous performance benchmarks to look at, it can be easy to just throw something up like a standard traffic campaign or a brand awareness campaign to a cold audience. And you may not know what to look for to see how it's actually performing, anything to compare it to from the past. So you can just sort of throw that up and you might feel like you've wasted your money. And we don't want that to happen. So a great place to get started with that small of a budget, $1,000 a month. And like I said, you want to know that you are serving to an interested audience, is with a retargeting campaign. So with the retargeting campaign, you can leverage people who have already visited your website or viewed your LinkedIn company page, and then serve an ad to them within their LinkedIn newsfeed. So I've seen this across the board on LinkedIn, Facebook, any real platform. Today we're going to focus on LinkedIn for B2B, but any type of retargeting on paid media, if it's executed properly, it really is the best bang for your buck, where you'll typically see a better cost per click, a better cost per engagement, better cost per conversion, all the main metrics that you look at to gauge the performance of your campaign. They end up performing better when you're retargeting to people who already know who you are versus just a cold campaign and you're reaching people who may have not already heard about you. So this is also a good thing to use too. Like if you already have a good organic strategy where you got good organic search ranking, you're posting organically on social media, you're getting people to interact in those ways, pair it with retargeting, you can stay in front of those people even more if you don't already have paid traffic coming in. But before you can really start rebuilding or building a retargeting campaign, you first want to install a LinkedIn Insights tag on the back end of your site to start collecting that data for people who have visited your site. So if you may have heard of like the Facebook retargeting pixel or the Google tag, the Google ads tag, it's just like that. It's just a piece of code that you're going to literally put on the back end of your site. But some best practices for doing that, once you have it installed on your site, you typically want to wait around 30 days after it's installed, if you don't have it already, just to sort of let it optimize and start getting data of people who have actually visited your site. If you just install the pixel and then start an ad and start retargeting to people immediately, your audience size is going to be pretty small. So best practice, you want to install that tag, wait about 30 days, and start gathering that data. And if you think about it, really this time of year is the perfect time to start gathering data of people who have visited your site, because we're going into trade show season, and you're going to have more and more people learning about who you are, visiting your site from different sources, and you can start collecting that data. So we actually have a really nice resource for you that shows how you can install that insight tag on the back end of your site. I believe we're going to drop that in the Slack group. And it'll be instructions on how you can take find the LinkedIn Insights tag, put it on your site, whether it's through Google Tag Manager or if you just do it manually on the back end of your site.
We had a question come in the chat, Kevin, and that is, from Aaron, can your retargeting audience be too small? Maybe a short answer and a long, long answer to that one.
Sure. Short answer, yes, it can be too small. I really wouldn't like make a judgment on that until you actually have it installed and you can wait a little bit of time and start gathering that data. Usually when you install it, I've seen it take a few hours. I've also seen it take like a couple days for LinkedIn to actually start optimizing. And then you can build out like a matched audience to see exactly how big that audience will be. You know, if it's really small, like if it's in the hundreds, you know, you're not going to have nearly enough people to serve $1,000 a month budget to. But it's going to be hard to say because you're not really going to know exactly how big it's going to be until a little bit down the line.
All right, so we got some good answers on if you're running any paid campaigns. So Ashley said we run campaigns on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram, but have not yet tapped into paid. I would love to hear from those who have. Beth said we run paid campaigns on LinkedIn and Facebook. Aaron said product marketing only so far, but branching into some brand awareness and narrative. Luke said we are running Google ads for about 9 years and LinkedIn targeted ads, which are new to us this year. Anna just received budget to run LinkedIn ads this quarter, but hasn't kicked it off yet. Carol said we have LinkedIn paid campaigns, unpaid LinkedIn, Twitter, and then looking to expand both. And then her LinkedIn campaign was for a specific champion kit download. Jeremy, I would like you to come on in a second to ask that question that you had in there. I think Kevin could probably provide some insight there. And then, yeah. So thanks everyone for your answers there. So Jeremy, do you want to unmute and come on and ask your question?
Yeah, sure.
Hey,
how's it going?
good.
So we were running LinkedIn, boosted posts, and we were, we write various blogs. We have blog kind of content on our site. So we were running this using the strategy of running ads that would, or boosted posts that would basically link back to our blog posts on our site. And we had pretty good, lots of traffic, like literally like hundreds of visitors per month, good click-through rate. Cost per click of between $2 and $3. So it's like all the kind of factors were looking good. It's just that the actual time on the site, they'd only spend like a few seconds on the site, they bounce off, right? Or, when we track like goal completions, like if they, watch a video or download a form or request a quote, and that was pretty low too. So it's like, it was a great traffic driver. And we were targeting, pretty specific titles, specific industries, for our product. And so, I just thought it was odd that they would just bounce off so quickly. And, so we got very few leads per se or sales revenue, e-commerce from it. Just lots of good traffic, or lots of traffic, I should say. So
Yeah,
Jeremy, yeah, go ahead, Mary.
All right, cool. So this is just kind of like a general statement for anyone running paid social campaigns. I put it in the chat, but if you're not doing a free text, how did you hear about us form and running paid social campaigns, you're doing yourself a huge disservice. So Jeremy's experience is super common. What people will do is probably, especially in industrial and manufacturing, they'll look at your ad on their phone because everyone goes on social media on their phone. They might click to your website and see, okay, this is a legit website, right? So it's not like some fake spam bot or something like that. They'll bounce off because they're on their phone, and then they'll come back later on their desktop computer at work, look you up and convert on a high intent form. So adding that "how did you hear about us" free text field is so important. But yeah, Kevin, you can take it from there.
Sure. You said a boosted post. Did you actually like boost hit a button like boost post, or did you set up an actual like continuously running campaign?
Yeah, I actually set it up in the campaign manager, and actually built the ads using the campaign manager with UTM codes and adding the photos that way. So it's like and then the link. So we didn't just go to the LinkedIn, like the blog post on LinkedIn and then say boost this. We actually built it in the ad manager. So
cool. So yeah, one thing to go along with what Mary was saying, like you always want to make sure too that the messaging in the ad and the creative, the copy is congruent with where you're sending them. If you want them to take a specific action, they need to be able to do that on the page that they land on, and it has to match the same like messaging within the ad itself. I've seen people make that mistake, or they might even set up a optimize like a campaign type. They might set it up to be completely different than what they're actually trying to get done. They might run just a general brand awareness or engagement type of ad. And that's going to get people, a lot of eyeballs on your ad. It's going to get people to engage with the ad on the platform, but they may not be optimized to actually do something on your site once they get there.
And then I think from my perspective, first off, Jeremy, the stats you have on your ads are very good. So a CPC of $2 to $3, and then a click-through rate of between 1 and 2.0. I think the average on LinkedIn is somewhere in like the 0.4s for a click-through rate. So that ad definitely got people to your website. Yeah, so I would optimize that landing page and make sure it's easy for people to consume the content. And then you have 600 characters on a single image post on LinkedIn to put copy into the intro text. So fill that sucker out and put the educate within the feed. So you don't necessarily need to send somebody to your website if you're trying to educate them, with an article. So put the highlights up in the intro text, and then, hey, learn more, go to the article.
Is it a best practice to link like back to blog posts, or would it be better to like link to a homepage or like a contact form or like a product landing page specifically? Because it was kind of like we were taking the kind of we're the thought leader on this, and here's some more information. And at the bottom of the blog post, it would say, click here to contact us, or, purchase, that kind of thing. So it's like, it appears that they would land there, scan it, and then, wouldn't continue on to the contact page or, to the product page. So I'm just curious if that's if that's a best practice to link directly to blog posts or, articles, as you're saying.
I would link back to the article in that case, if that's what you're doing is promoting your article. Like we talk about a lot, like 95% of the people that you're going to send an article to are not in a buy mode. And so they're not going to want to continue on to get a quote. But now they know about your company and they read the article, and, hopefully 3-6 months on the road, they go back and they fill out the form. But that's where it gets, where Mary's saying, like, put that free text form in, how'd you hear about us? So that, like, okay, so that article I did 6 months ago, help convert this person.
Could you please expand on that free text form, what that is exactly?
Yes. So that's like your request a quote or contact us form should have a field. So like you usually do like name, email, job title, company, add in a field that says, how did you hear about us? Don't make it a drop down. Don't make it a select an option. Let them say whatever they want to say, because they like huge insights. So the reason that this is so important, when you go into a marketing software, so like a HubSpot, Marketo, Zendesk, I mean, you name it, whatever marketing software you want to insert into the blank, they're going to say that it came from organic search, direct traffic, email, referrals, or other. That's pretty much all you're going to get. And most of it's organic and direct, right? So they're never going to be able to tell you that this person consumed your ad on LinkedIn or your ad on Facebook. They're never going to say they visited your webinar. It's never going to say they listened to you as a guest on a podcast, Nothing like that. But the customer will tell you that. So even though the software is saying something like organic search or direct traffic, that free text field is going to give you all the answers you need on where the customer actually heard about you.
Now, Mary, is that actually in the LinkedIn ad itself, or are you talking about back on your website, like your contact page?
Back on your website, right on your contact page.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Heck yeah. So just like as an example for everyone here, our founder, Joe Sullivan, has a podcast, The Manufacturing Executive. Everyone that comes in almost for our request a consult form comes in from either organic or direct traffic. But we added that free text field, and it's almost always, I heard about you on this very specific episode of the Manufacturing Executive podcast. So if we would have seen it and just seen organic traffic, we would just assume they came in through Google and probably pour a ton of money into like paid search, right? But really, that guy's just told us they came to us on the podcast. So we're not investing in Google anymore. Now we're putting all that marketing budget back into the podcast.
Gotcha. And by free form, you mean literally a text field that's like an open text field, like they can type whatever they want, kind of thing?
Yes.
Okay. And make it required.
Yes.
Gotcha. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
We've got a
Jeremy,
little
in
bit
the
of a build on that question there, Mary. And I think this is important because we're talking about, getting started in paid social. So I want to jump into that. Like Aaron had another great question. How do you approach reporting this with Freeform? And one of the reasons why we're suggesting this is because we think it will help you with your reporting to build the case that this is worth the investment. So can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so they're going to get super specific, like I just said, but you are going to have to, as the marketer who is proving this concept out until you get more buy-in from leadership, you're going to have to do the manual work on the back end to normalize that data in something like HubSpot or Excel. If you need help doing this, please DM me on LinkedIn. I will show you exactly how to do it. I'll send you a video, whatever you need. You're going to have to say something like, if you're running a podcast, for example, and they say, I heard about you on this very specific episode of the podcast, that's just podcast, boom. So another one that you might be doing is like a webinar program. So if they come in and say, oh my gosh, I loved you on the webinar you did with XYZ webinar, like that's the new data in Excel. So then what you go back to is your executive team and you say, hey, we got 10 leads from organic search, but guess what? 4 of those were from the podcast, 3 were from LinkedIn, and 2 of them heard about us on Facebook. So we're not investing our money in Google anymore. We're not doing PPC ads. What we need to do is start reinvesting that into more creative and innovative outlets. So I hope that helps. Like I said, if you need help doing it, just let me know.
Jeremy, I dropped a link in the chat for you for a previous episode we did on conversion rate optimization, where we go pretty in depth on forms and getting your website set up for converting. So I think Beth had a really great question. If you'd like to come on and ask, we'd love to have you.
Yeah, sure. So we sell through distribution like many manufacturers, but obviously like we want to reach our end users, the manufacturers that are actually utilizing our cutting tools. But if you have a limited budget, like who should we be marketing to? Should we be marketing to distributors or should we be marketing toward those end users?
That is a really great question. And it's something I dealt with a lot at Graco. Mary, did you deal with distributors at Spray Systems? Yeah. So it's a pretty common thing for all of us industrial marketers. So from my perspective, with paid ads, I would never run a paid ad to a distributor. Distributors to me are a sales thing. Like our sales team was account managers and they managed their distributors. So my job was to basically get bottom up pulling of our products from distributors, right? Because my distributors weren't doing a ton of work on marketing themselves, and so a lot of it was coming to me to educate the market on our products. And so you just have to look at what your budget is and develop an audience that's going to fit that budget size that you have, right? Like if you have $4,000, you probably don't want a 200,000 person audience, right? Like you need to get your targeting specified enough to where the audience size you have matches what you could do with your budget. And I would, from my perspective, message down to your end users and have them pull from distribution. Mary, do you have any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I have a good example. It's not manufacturing or industrial related, but I think it paints a good picture. I was talking to a guy who was a VP of marketing for a giant brewery, and they do direct advertising to the end user. So that's like liquor shops, stuff like that. And the liquor stores and grocery stores started coming to the distributors saying, I want you to sell me this beer. So that's the exact like feedback loop you want to create. So marketing to the end user,
sure.
Then the end user is coming to the distributor saying, get me that product. That's what I want.
And then I have a follow-up question, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So like we're very much like technical products. So we sell cutting tools. And so even like within that, we have many different customer personas from the end user. Like we have like a CNC machinist, an engineer, a buyer. Like do you think we should be more targeting those technical like engineers, CNC machinists, or everybody?
So who is the person that usually starts the process on like, oh, I need to buy a cutting tool? Like, who is that person that usually starts that conversation?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah.
have to
So
find that out.
I would go and talk to your customers and just, or talk to your sales team probably knows too. I would not start with purchasing. It's probably going to be some sort of maintenance person or an engineer that, oh, we have this new line. We need to get some cutting tools to incorporate into this process. So it's usually that to me, it's probably going to be some sort of like manufacturing engineer that is going to be the
That's
person
what I
you want
would
to reach out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd envision
That's
that
what I would
too.
assume, but
Okay.
I would go in and talk to some people and confirm that before you start putting money to that.
Okay, thanks for your help.
Yeah.
Great question, Beth. So I know we started talking a little bit about retargeting, and then it was like the audience building. We're thinking, all right, so we want to install these insight tags. We started to get into a conversation around like, all right, now who do we target? Just in general. So while you're installing these insight tags, these are all working in the background for you, right? Like, what should you be doing during like that 30-day period afterwards, or maybe it's 60 days, who knows? Like after you install that insight tag, what can you do to keep things moving, to build yourself up, get closer to success?
Yeah, so I will tell you my perspective, and then maybe Kevin and Brendan can jump in. So because I came from a company who was extremely skeptical about paid social, I made sure I had the data to back up my claims. So the first thing I did was create a strategy around it. So I've used this example in episodes before, so I'll use it again. We were selling a tank cleaning nozzle that we had basically shrunk down for dairy markets. So their tanks are smaller, and the nozzle we were selling was too powerful. So they needed a smaller version, a little bit cheaper, a little bit more tailored to exactly what they do. So the first thing I did was make sure, yes, of course, we're going to be targeting dairy farmers on potentially Facebook, but definitely LinkedIn, because LinkedIn, the demographics data post launch is much better. So what I did was went into the CRM, benchmarked all the dairy farmers we had already marketed to. When were they asking for quotes? How many were we getting month over month, quarter over quarter, year over year? How many products were we selling to them? So I had all that data in my hand so that I could say, hey, leading indicators at 3 months are going to be, dairy farmers are suddenly becoming a little bit more interested in our product. Maybe they're asking more questions. In 6 months, they're going to start filling out forms asking, hey, what's this tank cleaning nozzle? Am I supposed to be using this? In 9 months, we're going to be start to see real results. So the first thing you're going to want to do is figure out your targeting, benchmark where you were before that, and then set expectations on where you'll be in 3, 6, and 9 months.
Where are you benchmarking? Like, if you've never done it, like, where are you getting those numbers?
You're
like, how do you benchmark?
Yeah. So you're probably going to have to pull it from your CRM. We had a pretty decent CRM. We used Dynamics. So all of that information was there. Our sales guys were required to put stuff like job title, product, all that kind of stuff. So if you guys don't have that, let me know. And again, I will help you. So just like put in the chat, like if you don't have a CRM or you don't know how to benchmark that.
I think the point around like benchmarking is so important, because you're never going to be able to capture the full attribution story of your paid social efforts, especially with cold targeting. I mean, some people will come in and say, for one of our clients, we do get like organic and direct traffic leads who come in and say, LinkedIn, for instance, but there's also a lot of people who say online or web, which could be LinkedIn, it could be, Google search, that kind of thing. And kind of benchmarking allows you to tell a story around, like a client of ours, for instance, is like on track to have like the best month ever of, high intent contact requests. We're doing nothing else different except for paid social. So where do we think that's coming from? But a lot of the like increase is like online or web that I can't really tie cleanly back. So it just allows you to like tell that the full story a little bit better, I think.
Hey, Rachel, if you don't mind either coming on or putting in the chat, if you can't, do you have product data then? So like how much of a certain product you're thinking about marketing? Do you have the data on how much opportunity value and then customer value you have on those products?
And for clarification, Rachel, for just everyone who's listening and not seeing the chat, Rachel had a question. She does not have a CRM, so the benchmarking would be manual for her.
And just hop on and save myself typing.
You're like, oh, how fast can I type?
I know, right? And make everybody wait. Maybe the anticipatory build would have been worth it. But so basically, a lot of the stuff that we do right now would be aggregated manually because right now all of the information is entered into our main company RDS system, which then is not integrated with the CRM. So a lot of people just don't use it because it would be double work. So I wouldn't lean on that as a reliable source of info, let alone updated. So I have, we do collect leads from various forums through our website, and I do have on every single one, how'd you hear about us? But I would have to go through in terms of, are you asking interest from customers on specific products, that information?
Not necessarily. So I think that gave me some pretty good insight. I was set up similarly at my previous job where we had an ERP system and a CRM, and those didn't really talk to each other. So also had to manually enter any of the data. So what is your company's single source of truth? Is it that RDS system? Like if you pulled data in from that RDS system, would everyone be like, yes, that's the data that's true?
Yeah, that would probably be
Perfect.
Where everything is entered in through there.
Awesome. Okay, so then what you'll have to do if you're doing a product marketing and you're trying to benchmark. So I'll use the dairy tank cleaning nozzle again. So I would benchmark any nozzle that we had. So we had altered a larger nozzle. So I would take all of the product data that you had from that single bigger nozzle, because this new one's not going to have any data on it because you're launching it. So you have all the old data, and what you're going to have to do is pull in every single item you've sold and the company you've sold it to. So you'll have to manually export that in Excel and then go through. And again, I know this is very frustrating. It's just what you have to do in order to prove success. You'll have to say the industry. So you'll have to industry mark each of those companies. So were they dairy? Were they not dairy, basically?
Right.
And then what I would do is say, here's where dairy increased. Here's where opportunities came in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Cool.
So much manual work. I was hoping there was an easier, click this button and it magically gives you what you need.
Yeah.
Well, Rachel, maybe if you get a CRM, that's what everyone in the chat is saying, then
believe me. And we're looking to, and that made it sound like our ERP system is slick as a whistle, which we can, I have a dream. So one day we'll get it all integrated. We're looking at upgrading systems across the board. So all this should be easier. So can I ask one more quick question?
Of course.
For the form, I added in a how did you hear about us, but I put in options as opposed to a blank field. And right now we just kind of started doing webinars and, or live events, as they say. We don't have a podcast currently, but I've been looking at that. So it's sort of, did you see us on social or YouTube or on our website and ad, whatever, but I put in those options because I felt like it would increase the chances of them just clicking a bubble as opposed to spending the extra 2 seconds to type in. Should I change that? Because I'd love to get their feedback, but I would rather get something of lower detail than not get anything at all. So that's why I set it up that way.
No, I totally understand that. So what we've seen, and any of the Gorilla 76 folks can jump in on this, is people will either just click the first one because it's easy, or the last one because they scrolled down and they didn't feel like clicking anything else. So if you do have that set up where it's a drop-down menu, check and see how many of those people are just checking either the first one or the last one. And if it's kind of doesn't really match where your efforts are going. So you said you're doing a big live events program, if live events is buried in the middle and all of a sudden, you're getting all these people and at the top it says like Facebook, but you're not really doing a lot with Facebook, then it's like, okay, they're probably just clicking the first one and not scrolling down far enough to click anything else.
Oh, okay. They'll just lie to you like that? Man.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
People are very lazy when it comes to forms.
All right, good to know.
I
Thanks,
feel
Mary.
like I can trust the data a lot more when it's free text because someone's like actually typing it in. Like there's still going to be the lazy one or two people. Like I'll see a contact request come in and it'll say star, not applicable, but that's pretty rare. Most people actually fill it out. But then I feel like I can trust it as opposed to, the drop down, you're just going to do the first one, last one. And so it just kind of skews the data a little bit.
Okay. And do you make that field required? Because I don't have it required right now.
We do. Again, like people who aren't going to fill out the form are just going to like put an asterisk or, NA or something like that. But most people will just fill it out.
Great. Thanks, Grace. Thanks, Mary.
So we were thinking here, it would be a good idea to actually show how to like create the audiences in LinkedIn. Would that be helpful for y'all? I mean, I'm seeing some head shake, like, okay, cool. Kevin, do you mind just like walking us through like how you would, maybe not from the start, but just like getting to the audience portion?
Absolutely.
Campaigns.
Yeah, let's make some campaigns.
Yeah, let's build it out. All right, I'm going to share my screen. So, see that all right?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so here within LinkedIn Campaign Manager, so the place to get to building out your actual like retargeting audiences, once the insight tag is on there, once you've started collecting your data, come into Campaign Manager, open up your campaigns, and then here under Account Assets, you want to click on Matched Audiences, and it's going to take you here. So to start properly building out an audience, we have a few here that already exist: website visitors, 30, 90, 180 days. But if you're creating a brand new one, you just click Create Audience. And then you can choose like what you want to retarget by. So we want to retarget people who have been on our website. So we click Website, and then a good practice just for naming the audience is just like website visitors, 30 days, however long it is. And then you can see when did they engage, 30 days in the past, select that. If you want to select like a specific web page to retarget from, like this is a good example. If you want to exclude somebody who has already submitted a contact form, you don't want to keep hammering them with ads, right? Like if they've already done what you want them to do, they've reached out and contacted you, you can actually exclude that. So I'll use our site as an example. So here's like our thank you page. If somebody books a consultation, we're going to take the main URL, piece of the URL slug, and then here, we're going to go here, and we're going to say the URL contains that. And then we could do exclude that audience. So like we would name that audience like thank you or form submission within the last 30 days, and then click agree and create. If you're just going to do a regular full website visitors, there's a few different ways you can do it. You could say the URL just like contains whatever your main domain is, like Gorilla 76, you know. For us, if we want to get all of our pages, as far as I know, contain Gorilla 76 within the URL slug. So you would just select that and then click agree and create. You know, I think it would be a good practice from the start to go ahead and create these for 30, 60, 90, and 180 day audiences. You have to create them all individually. But once you click agree and create, you're going to see at first that the audience is building. And as you can see, it says here, it can take up to 48 hours. I've seen it take shorter than that. I've seen it take longer than that. It's just going to depend on your audience size, usually, how long it's going to take to collect that data. So that's how you set up your website visitors. Another good way to, another good practice is to retarget people who have visited your company page. So you can click there on company page, or just name it like LinkedIn company page engagers or visitors or whatever you want to call it. And then people who visited your page, and then you can do the same thing, 30, 60, 90, 180, even up to 365 days. And the cool thing with creating this audience too, of people who have visited your LinkedIn page already, this is all first party data. So as long as you've had a company page, this data has been collecting. So if you select 30 days in the past, that data already exists. It's not going to take very long for LinkedIn to pull that in. Same with 90, 60, 90. As far as I know, all of this data, they just hold on to. So it's all first party data. It's going to be really easy to utilize. So yeah, setting up those audiences for, if you already have existing organic traffic, I would say do the website visits and then the company page visits. If you already have a campaign running, or if you've had one in the past and you've had your insights tag set up, you can also create audiences of people who have engaged with your existing ads. If this is a brand new experiment with this $1,000, you don't really have to worry about that. I just wanted to highlight that as an option. You can select like a single image within an ad that you've run before, and you can retarget that as well. It's a cool way. It's cool that you can set it up that way with 30, 60, 90, 180, because you could even, if you wanted to, depending on exactly how much budget you have, you could set up different like phases of your retargeting where you have, I'm going to have an ad served to people that have visited the site within the last 30 days. I'm going to have an ad served to people within the last 90 days, and sort of have it at like different levels if you want different creative variations as well. It all sort of depends on like what your offer is and what your overall traffic is. Brendan, Mary, anything you want to add to that?
Thumbs up for Mary.
Yeah, I think the other cool thing you could do with the retargeting is just like Kevin talked about with a single image, you can also do it off your video ads, and then you can base it on view time on your video. So I think it's 25, 50, 75, and 100% completion.
Yeah.
And so like if you set up the retargeting to, people that watch 50% or at least 50% of your video ad, like that person was pretty engaged with your video ad and is probably going to be really engaged with any future content that you're going to deliver to them. So I do have one question for you, Kevin. So why is retargeting good for us here instead of running a cold campaign?
So it's good to run retargeting because the audience, is already engaged. Like you don't have to take a lot of time to ramp up a cold audience. It could take a little time if you launch a brand new cold audience. Again, you may not know exactly the right type of people to target from that. It might take you a little bit of experimenting and audience research to find the perfect audience to target. And it could take a little while to actually build up the proper type of like retargeting mix where you're having the right people visit your site and the right people visit your company page.
Mm-hmm.
So I think starting out with a retargeting, it's like, that's already a pretty high intent audience. They're going to be much more likely to actually take action. Every situation is going to be different, but in my experience of running a lot of different ads for folks, a lot of different businesses, I've seen that the retargeting audience is always just your best bang for your buck. That is, especially with like all the different privacy changes and things like that have taken place in the last couple of years. Retargeting, especially off of data that you already own, like that is where you're going to see the most action.
Kevin, we had a question from Jeremy. So does 365 mean from now to 365 days in the past, or actually from just a year ago?
From now to Oh, so that would mean like within the last 365 days. Yeah.
Anybody that's been to your website within the last year.
So it's a dynamic audience, right? Not a static list.
Exactly. Those are dynamic audiences. Those are always updating to within the last whatever window you selected.
And Luke, I know we are running short on time here. There's obviously so much more. I see this every time. You guys know. I'm like a broken record. But Luke, you had a question. I'm trying to find it in the chat. What was your question?
I can just ask it if I remember it. I had and this could go towards retargeting as well. We started experimenting with LinkedIn ads, and sort of like Jeremy, had people going to the website and then falling off and didn't feel like it was immediately successful. So we actually switched to the lead gen form that sits right inside LinkedIn, and had what we felt like was a lot of success. But you download that list of leads and it's like 90% international Gmail and Yahoo accounts that never respond. So I can't tell you they're junk, but it kind of felt like spam, or people, my eyes say like LinkedIn is paying those people to go on there and do it. I don't know if that's true or not, but I just, from your perspective, Kevin, if you've had success with the inside LinkedIn ads, we seem to have success, but it was like false success.
That's a really good question. So I have had the same thing happen that happened to you, where I got, some junk leads. It seemed like it was not working out, but I did some tweaking to the actual ad setup. So I made sure that I was targeting like the most specific audience that I could, with exactly like within my industry that I wanted to target. I've tightened things up as much as possible and started running the ad to that. I will say, like, I have had the experience where the lead gen ad runs well for a little while. You are getting like some good leads, but then after a little bit of time, it sort of like dies off, or you might start getting a little more of those junk leads. Those things just happen. If that is the case, I would say just stop the ad, duplicate it, restart it. I've had luck doing that. There's one thing you could do as well, is you could also retarget into a lead gen campaign, like we're talking about here. Then for sure, like, your audience is, for the most part, it's going to be a pretty valid audience. It's people who have already interacted with you. So that's one thing that you could experiment with. But if you do go back into doing a cold campaign with lead gen, I'd say just do as much audience research as you can, and build out like the tightest audience that you can within the actual LinkedIn platform.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Awesome. Well, we're getting close to the end of the hour. I feel like there's more questions here, and I'm happy to like hang out for a little bit longer if anyone does have some additional questions. But it sounds like we probably just need to dive deeper into like the whole topic of audience in general, and just beyond retargeting, but like, initial targeting, maybe even. So if you have questions or topics that you'd like us to cover on a future IML, Brendan and I actually just chatted, and we've got kind of a plan for the next 3 months or so, based on some requests that we got in the Slack group. So if you have requests that, we had a whole plan for the year, but like we said in our first content planning episode in January, why do we even do that? Because we just redo it the year.
Yeah.
So we're taking your feedback, and we're going to kind of change some of these episodes that we've got coming up to directly answer the big questions that you have right now. So if you've got additional questions, feel free to throw them in the chat now. Also, we'd love for all of you to join us in Slack, keep these conversations going. Specifically, Anna, I know you're about to kick off a LinkedIn campaign. If you're still on here, Anna, I'd love for us to help you brainstorm with that if you're open to it, in the Slack group in between. So
yeah, I would say, like, to that point, like, we can take a look at your audiences for you before you launch them, just so you get an extra eye on that. So I know, like, as a one person show in an industrial market, like, it's tough to like go out and do something by yourself. So we're here for you in Slack, and we want to help. So yeah, bring your audiences and let's talk about them, and get you as much success as possible.
Awesome. Cool. And then we will send out, I know Grace gave some like step-by-step instructions in the chat, but we'll send out a video on setting up that insight tag and a few other resources on just LinkedIn in general. But thank you so much, Kevin. We're so happy that you're here, part of Gorilla. This is like Kevin's like second week, right? Second, third week.
Yeah, second week.
Right into the
Okay,
fire.
cool. Yeah. So welcome aboard, Kevin. Thanks so much for sharing your insight with us here in Industrial Marketing Live. And we look forward to future episodes. So hope everyone has a good rest of your week and happy Memorial Day.
Hi, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.